Well, welcome everyone. We've continued on this kind of segment of the Hector Mike Experience, Common Sense and Uncommon World, and we've come up on this particular issue where here in California, you've got 18 kids, all under the age of 18, who've decided to sue because of the impacts of climate change. They have anxiety. They're having mental issues. They're having mental problems because of climate change. And they are obviously suing the adults, suing government, trying to sue energy companies because they have not done enough, quote unquote, on their standards of protecting them against climate change. I mean, seriously, I mean, what kind of freaking snowflake world are we have we created where you got? I mean, look, here's the thing: is and granted, I understand people have got mental issues, people have got anxiety issues, and and there's treatment or people people deal with a lot of things. But I bet you these kids have a cell phone. I bet you these kids get driven back and forth to school. They're all under 18. Somehow these kids, I bet you all of them probably have a roof over their head. They all wear clothes because they were clothed in the article I saw. And the naiveness of it is like, look, if you really are having this anxiety or mental breakdown on because of the oil industry, and because of climate change and what the oil industry is causing for climate change, then you got to get rid of all your goods because that cell phone you got is petroleum based. It's made from petroleum products. The buttons in our shirts are made from petroleum based products. The asphalt is made by petroleum based products. The car you drive in, the roof over your head, every single thing that we deal with on a regular basis is derived, a lot of it, from petroleum based products. And so this idea that they're out there and the environmentalists are pushing these kids to go out there and to sue because of this anxiety that they've got, it seems, to me, it just seems like a stupid move. It's laughable, and at the same time, I mean, it's just, I don't know, just contradictory in itself. I mean, what the
Well,
hell's going on, Mike, in our freaking society?
well, like you said, it's for climate change. We sure have a lot more snowflakes than we used to. And I'll spare you the used to have to walk this a mile in school in the snow back in Providence, but there's also another part of this, and you're right about the kids. I mean, it is, they all want to be little Greta Thunbergs, who, by the way, was, chanting death to Zionism in a protest overseas someplace. So, maybe they're all training to be, anti-Israel people or whatever. Um, it just there's an element here though that you haven't spoken of that needs to be spoken of, and that's the ambulance chasing plaintiff attorney who, there's a thing called sue to settle, especially with companies that have deep pockets. And so, in some respects, these kids get used, and the environmentalists with their lawyers use them with these plaintiff attorneys to clog the court systems and to bring these cases, these nonsense cases, in the hope that um, the people being sued, in this case the oil companies and what have you, will settle it out of court for a nice settlement. Do they have a chance of winning? Who knows these days with a jury? I mean, maybe they do. But the whole concept of, these kids suing because of climate change, what would be interesting is if you gave them a test, put them in a nice air conditioned building because they need to be nice and cool, play some soft music for them, show them little Barneys walking around the classroom, and, all kinds of nice stuff like that. Maybe a yoga mat. Maybe they need a yoga mat. And then test them about how the world works, about how we have to import oil tankers that are destroying the Brazilian rainforest in Venezuela and other countries that hate us to come over to California because all of the regulations that we had to protect our environment weren't good enough to do drilling here at home. test them about all of that kind of stuff. Not even whether they agree or disagree or if they have any knowledge of it. That's what you want to test them for. And I would bet you that they're probably good at, World of Warcraft, but they're not good at World of Life. And so that's what you have. You have these kids that get played as pawns. These kids that are, can now go around school saying, "Hey, I'm suing somebody." Maybe they're a big shot. And you're right.
Right.
They don't understand the world that they live in, and the things that they use that are convenient and easy for them, that are petroleum based. And when all of a sudden, they have to give up that roof over their head, that car that gets them picked up, that cell phone that they use 24/7, they may have a little bit different opinion. But I also blame the plaintiff attorneys and the environmentalists that get these lawyers that sue to settle,
Well,
because I've
and they're
seen it in a
and
bunch of industries.
just so we're clear, they're suing the Environment Protection Agency,
Right.
which we see all the time, which is government entities that will settle, and just give these activists bunch of money so they can go and sue again on other things.
But let me tell you, and I'm glad you brought that up. This is something else people got to realize, and I've seen it firsthand. Don't be surprised to find that the environmental activists who are working in government go to these people and say, "You ought to sue us for this." And the goal won't be to get money, the goal will be to get policy change.
Yeah.
That's how they do it. There is a collusion that takes place. I saw that when I worked in federal government for a brief period. The collusion takes place where the government agency has a goal and a mission, and in this case, their goal and their mission is to make, tougher and tougher for the oil companies. And so what they do is they get in collusion with the attorneys, the kids, and everybody else, the local environmentalists, get them to sue the agency with the goal of maybe not getting a big check from the government, but getting policy change from the government as part of the settlement. That's what they're going for, which
Yeah.
will make, again, make it more expensive at the pump, more expensive to put heating oil in your house,
Right.
more expensive for everything because there are so many things in our life that are petroleum based.
Well, in the lawsuit, they've got one of the plaintiffs, since its name is, I think her name, or is Genesis, him or her name is
Yeah.
Genesis B, and basically indicating that because of climate change, well, first of all, her parents can't afford air conditioning, so but because of climate change, she or he is unable to do their homework because it gets so hot in the house.
Hmm.
I mean, and that's one of their arguments: the anxiety, the mental anguish, and everything else. I mean, who the hell are these parents that are letting their kids go out and file these lawsuits? I mean, hell, I think if my one of my girls came up, I'd be not, I'm no violence here, but smack them on the side of the head. It's like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
We teach you better than this. If you got a problem,
Well,
we go solve the freaking problem. And at the same time, it's this idea of it's like, you really want a world without petroleum based products? Great, give me your cell phone, give me this, give me that. I mean,
right,
you're going to be sleeping outside. And how are you even going to get to school if you don't have petroleum based asphalt or anything else there?
right.
It's an absurdity. And I just
You
I
know,
I think these folks, these activists, take it as it's become, Mike, and we see it left and right, where this thing has just become like a religion. It is like a cult with these individuals that makes no rhyme or reason, that makes no sense, but they're just out there, spewing their stuff.
it's um, I laughed when I saw that story about Genesis because, yeah, I mean, it's when it's 90 degrees, it's kind of difficult to focus. Everybody knows that. So go to the library. Hello, they have air conditioning. Most of the schools stay open. I mean, when school is out, the schools don't close their doors 10 minutes later. You know that. Your kids have all kinds of after school activities. You don't think the school doesn't have some kind of system or plan in place? Yeah, it's inconvenient. Okay? I'm not saying it's not inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world. Give me a break. And if that's what's going to stop you from, if that one little thing, I can't do my homework when I want to do my homework because it's too hot in the house, stops you, then you're not going to go very far in this world. That's the
Well,
bottom line.
don't you find that from a lot of, I mean, a lot of different, I mean, parents that you talk to or folks, it's like these kids are just, I mean, they want everything freaking handed to them. You know,
Right.
they are
I, you know,
any.
I go
Sorry,
ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say any bit of struggle, any bit of effort that needs to be done, something. It's like, oh my God, you know, the world's coming to an end, and it's gotten so, you know, so difficult. I was talking to Bella the other day, and she was talking about, you know, some of her friends, and she's like, some of them who are too afraid to go ask for directions, you know, who are too afraid to go, and they were at a band event, and they didn't know if they were performing in building B or in building C, and they were too afraid to go to the people there at the table to ask them where their school was meeting so that they can go perform in this band performance. And she goes, I'll go ask. And she goes and asks and says, okay, okay, guys, we're going to be in building B. And she had like one of her friends like, oh my God, how did you get the courage to go up there and ask? She's like, I just asked.
Hmm.
But it's like, what is happening with these kids? I was talking to Amy the other day, and I told her about this particular topic, and she was listening to Armstrong and Getty
Hmm.
and radio guys, and they had seen this study that talked about the anxiety that this new generation has, even over calling for in for a pizza because they're afraid to get it wrong. You know, when they're calling in for a pizza, they would rather just do it all online because they don't want to talk to
Yeah.
someone because they've got
Right.
anxiety over it.
Yeah, personal interaction.
I'm like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Well, it's true. I mean, I think sometimes because everything is so digital these days, you've taken the personal interaction out of of situations. Um, but y- y- the reality is, and they just need to hear this. Life is tough. Shit happens. You may have nothing to do with what caused it, but shit happens. And so, if you're not ready to deal with that, then you're going to fall apart and you ain't going to go nowhere. Because nobody wants to be around people that throw up their hands and say, "Oh, I can't go ask somebody a question as to where I
Right.
need to go." Um, Unless, of course, you're in a guy and you're in a car and your wife is nagging at you, and then then it's a different issue. But I mean, that's just the reality of it. If that's the kind of thing that's going to stop you, and again, I go back to this Genesis girl, and I don't begrudge her. I mean, when if it's 90 degrees in the house, some of this, it is difficult to focus and concentrate. But that doesn't mean you sit in the house and try and do it. There are other options. You have to take the initiative to do it. And if you're
Right.
not willing to do that, that's what worries me about where this country's going to be in 20 or 30 years.
Well,
Because if
and
you
for
don't have
some of
the
these other
initiative to do
plaintiffs,
it now, forget it. It's not getting easier. I hate to tell you.
well, and for some of these other plaintiffs, their argument is because, and you said it correctly, is because they're losing out on other activities because of climate change. Well, I'm sorry, but growing up when it was cold, we put on a sweater, a sweatshirt, and we went outside and played. When it was getting hot, it's not like the coach was going to say, "Hey, we're not practicing. It's 90 degrees or it's 100 degrees." We were still practicing. We took more water breaks.
Right.
We did put on sunblock. You know, we put on a baseball cap. We did we weren't complaining or
You weren't
bitching about the
paralyzed.
situation. Yeah, we went and just did things.
Right.
We were kids. We acted out. We did our thing. We weren't stuck in the home, you know, feeling this anxious or anxiety, you know, about what may or may not happen to the world in, you know, in 20, 30 years. We were living it.
Hmm.
And I think for a lot of these folks is, you know, they're not living in the present. They're so caught up with, you know, what Al Gore may be telling them, you know, that the world is coming to an end in 20 years from now. I mean, good Lord.
Yeah,
Man, bear,
that's
pig guy. Yeah.
yes, man, be a pig. You're right. I mean, they just they get paralyzed is the word I would use for it. And again, I mean, you look and you say, who's going to hire a person like that? I mean, who in their right mind is going to hire a person that gets paralyzed over the fact that it's too hot to do something, and they can't figure out how to get it done without killing themselves in the heat. I mean that,
Environmental groups,
yeah,
environmental
yeah,
activists. That's all it
environment,
becomes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and you know what they're doing is the other part about this is besides the trial lawyers, this is an indoctrination. You know,
yeah,
indoctrinating a younger audience to, you know, this environmental radicalism, and you know, again, they all want to be little Gretas,
yeah,
and you know, I all I know is, you know, if I'm here in 30 years, then the environment's really going to hell in a handbasket. But they're just not good. The world is not that easy or safe or convenient.
yeah,
That's life. It's not.
yeah,
So if you can't deal with that and can't find a way to work around it, nobody's saying you have to sit in it and have to, you know, if you can't find a way to work, go to the damn donut store or to Starbucks. I mean, you go to Starbucks all the time, for Christ's sake. Go to Starbucks, have a nice coffee, sit and do your homework.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, you know, I don't know. You know, of course, the cups are made with, you know, petroleum products, so maybe
yeah.
they just pour the coffee down your throat. I don't know, but yeah, there you go.
Well, we'll see what happens with this thing. I mean, it's stupid. I know, and look, I think Brady agrees too.
He one bark, one bark, yes, two barks, no. What do you say?